The time is 10:58 a.m. I'm calling the meeting of the Kane County Development Committee to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Arroyo. Doherty. Garcia.
Garcia here.
Iqbal.
Iqbal present.
Linder.
Linder here.
Pepe. Leonard.
Leonard here.
Williams.
Present.
Roth.
Roth is here.
Do not have any remote attendance requests. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of September 16th, 2025.
So moved by consensus.
Mr. Iqbal asked for unanimous consent. Is that correct?
Correct,
Any
yes.
objection to the minutes being admitted? Okay, they are approved. We have public comment. If you've signed up for public comment and you have a zoning petition, you can speak during your zoning petition. So our first speaker is Suzanne Blasnick. Good morning, Ms. Blasnick. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Susan Blasick and I'm a resident here.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Can you speak right in that microphone? You can adjust it. It's just hard to
I'm
hear you.
taller. Is that better?
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Susan Blasick and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who worked on the short-term rental ordinance proposal. I am grateful this issue is being addressed. Before we move to finalize the ordinance, I would like to make you aware of my observations with the short-term rental situation. The street I live on is a very quiet dead-end street with only 10 houses on it. It is very wooded and peaceful. We all bought homes here because of the serene environment, never envisioning that a short-term rental would be on our street. The only traffic on the street prior to the short-term rental has been residents, deliveries, and services, etc. The short-term rental with its transient nature, in my opinion, has no place here. This is not a resort or a beachfront situation. Instead, we have had disruptions such as loud parties, overflowing parking in the street and lawn, interfering with possibly emergency vehicles, party buses dropping people off, a large portable sauna parked in the driveway, a man changing in the street down to his underwear and putting on a costume and entering the house party with music and strobe lights flashing, and most recently, my dog getting a hold of barbecue chicken bones being carelessly strewn on the lawn. I feel that a potential home buyer would think twice about purchasing a home with a short-term rental on the street. I'm grateful for carefully thought out legislation to be passed to regulate and limit short-term rentals in residential neighborhoods because of their negative impact, as I don't think any of you would welcome a short-term rental on your street. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Deanna Davison.
Thank you very much for the time and the opportunity to be able to speak to you today. Susan and I are neighbors. We live next door. To my left is the house in question on our block. And it is a almost 4,500 square foot home, which means that you're not going to have a family of 4 who are just trying to get away for the weekend. We routinely have 15, 20, 25 people in and out of the neighborhood at any given time during the day or night. This has been a concern for the reasons that Susan has already articulated. With my short period of time, I would like to focus mostly on the safety and security aspect of that. As Susan indicated, this is a very, very small block. There are only 10 homes on it. And when you introduce upwards of 25 people at any given time, it's literally doubling the population of our street. Not to mention the number of cars that are parked either on the street or on the lawn or in front of our homes. We've seen upwards of, was it 16 or 18 cars at any given time. Also, as she indicated, this is a no outlet road. This is not a through street. And so from a safety perspective, this is just, a nightmare waiting to happen. I should probably tell you, as a profession, I teach Homeland Security courses. I run the Homeland Security program at the College of DuPage. I teach emergency management courses, so safety and security is kind of my thing. I deal with entrance and egress all the time. And in the proposal that you have made, which I am very thankful that we're at least having this discussion, you make a point of talking about the safety requirements for bedrooms and that there needs to be a minimum of 2 modes of egress from any bedroom. We would argue that the same should be true of the community in which this house resides. Because as it stands, there's one way in and one way out. And when you clutter our tiny little street, our tiny little cul-de-sac with 18 additional cars and people who don't know the area, with animals that don't know the area, if something happens in our community, getting out is going to be very difficult, if not impossible. So we feel that there's a major safety issue that needs to be addressed. And as you are debating and voting on this proposition, we would ask that you would consider, and I know it's a big ask, that short-term rentals be restricted to through streets so that there is a minimum of 2 ways in and 2 ways out, particularly when you have a house the size of the one that's in question in our neighborhood. There have been plenty of other security issues and safety issues that we've had to deal with. Susan mentioned some with her dog. I also have a dog, and I happen to live right next door to this property. There is nothing in the proposal, as I see it right now, that restricts any kind of animals or confinement of animals, tethering of animals for any of the rental parties that come through. We would ask that you would consider that very seriously. We had an incident about 8 weeks ago where a strange dog that was, part of one of these rental parties wandered into my yard. My dog happened to be out. My dog is very protective of our boundaries. She understands our borders, which of course these transient dogs do not. And there was an altercation. And if I hadn't been there and been able to get into the middle of it, one of those dogs probably wouldn't have survived the night. And I won't tell you which one that is, but it's an ongoing problem. So we would ask you to consider that among other things as well. So it looks like my time is up. Thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you very much. I don't believe we have any other speakers other than agenda items. So we'll move on to our monthly finance reports. Our monthly reports are on file. Any questions on those for staff?
No.
Seeing none, we will move on to Building and Zoning Division. Mr. Van Kerkhoff?
Good morning, Mark Van Kerkhoff, Director of Development and Community Services. I want to start out my update this morning by thanking Chairman Williams and our HR team, specifically Jamie Laberlo. But we have made great progress on our reorganization required for our department to bring in the programs that were formerly with the Office of Community Reinvestment. So I also, along with that, have some introductions for you this morning. So our first ever Assistant Director of the Development and Community Services Department, Chris Dahl, on the end there. Most of you probably already know Chris from his support role for the Riverboat Subcommittee and the Riverboat grant process for in particular external grants, but he also has a long tenure with the former Office of Community Reinvestment, working with the CDBG program, and more recently getting up to speed on the home program. Well, Chris will be learning the entire scope of what the Development and Community Services Department does. He, in the short term, will be primarily focusing on working with me and the rest of the team to get our CDBG and home programs stood up and back up fully functioning with that. Chris is also has an architectural background and background in construction supervision, so he has a lot of experience and talents that lends himself to the position. We also have 2 new division managers as part of the reorganization. Chris Toth, also here, is our new planning division manager. You may know Chris from his role, particularly supporting the Jobs Committee and working with economic development. He does have a planning degree, and they're off to a great start supporting those planning staff. Also not here this morning, Natalie Zine is our new division manager for building and zoning. You all know her. I'll be filling in for her this morning. And then also just want to note to my right here, Jill Walsh is our first ever finance manager in the Development and Community Services Department. Jill also comes over from the former Office of Community Reinvestment. We had some key departures from that division during the course of this year, the latest one being the finance manager. Jill has done an outstanding job of stepping up into that role and filling the intricacies of accessing our federal dollars through the IDIS program, and is a great part of the support. Like Chris, initially she's working on, getting up to speed on our CDBG and home dollars and spending those, but over time she'll be a great asset to the entire team with the other grants, management and finance management that our department needs. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I wanted to introduce you to the new members of the team.
Well, thank you and welcome all. And is there any questions for staff? Ms. Allen, sorry.
Just want to toss into the ether that we've had, what, a decade of experience with Chris coming on, and pretty close to that with Mr. Toth. And I just want to mention that Joe Wash, who's just been introduced as our finance person, was the one who was able to manipulate those riverboat numbers when we were changing them in real time and with accuracy such that we could figure out what was going on with the money. So just want to say thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to zoning petitions. Our first item is petition number 4668, petitioner Sunvest Solar LLC, doing business as SVCSG SunTrust Solar LLC. Mr. Van Kerkhoff.
Sure. Yes. And also as part of the transition in terms of building and zoning, our team is very busy with new building permits and starts wanting to get foundations in the ground. And our zoning team is extremely busy with the amount of regular petitions, but solar petitions that are trying to get in through the process and get under construction before the incentives and things go out. So they're also very busy. So with that, we do have 3 zoning petitions for you this morning. The first one is a solar. I'll get to the right to the PowerPoint, but you have this in your packet. There we go. So petition summary, this is another project. The applicant is Sunvest Solar, doing business as SVCSG SunTrust Solar LLC. The property owner are the Sun Grandchildren's Trust, Jenny's son and trustee. The action requested is special use in the F farming district to allow the development of a commercial solar. It's about 39 acres on Route 72, and I've got some maps to illustrate the location. It is in Mr. Doherty's County Board District. This application was received in August, and all the associated items are complete and are posted on the county's website. Notices were sent to adjacent property owners. Here it is on the location map. On the aerial, you can see Gilbert's in the yellow, just on the other side of 90. And the subject property that you can see is predominantly farmland on Route 72. Here's a little bit closer up. The area for the special use is outlined in the hatching. Here's another close-up. You can see it's predominantly surrounded by farm fields. There is a farmstead on the property that is not part of the special use zoning area that is currently vacant. Here it is on the zoning map. Again, you can see where Elgin, Gilbert's, and further to the west, some Kane County unincorporated residential subdivisions. Here it is on the 2040 conceptual land use strategy in the area for critical growth. And on the 2040 land use map, it's in an area planned for future commerce and employment. Here it is on the land use map showing the purplish color for commerce and employment, which is reflective of its location relative to the village of Gilbert's. Here's their plan showing the location of the solar panels. the access drive off of Route 72 and the screening that's being proposed along the north end of the property. That screening and the panel fencing is about 360 feet back from the right of way. Here it is a little bit closer with the panels and the landscaping. Vegetative screen shall be part of the proposal. It's located between the required fencing and property line. Here's their planting list, arborvitae with other bushes in between in a staggered configuration. Here's their fence detail. Water Resources has their usual stipulations for solar, and Director Welnick is here if there's any questions on that. Transportation has reviewed the petition. This access for temporary and final access would be from IDOT. Health Department did not have any comments. Fire Protection District did review it, and they were wanting the access road increased from 16 feet to 20 feet. We had the typical reports from EcoCat regarding establishing recommendation for establishing pollinator-friendly habitat. Ground should be decompacted before planning, long-term management. Talk about fencing that would also allow wildlife movement and any trees when they should be recommendations for clearing. The Natural Resources report from Kane DuPage Soil and Water Conservation District. There is prime farmland on this track. You can see in the blue area, the LISA score of 85 or greater is considered to warrant protection. This LISA score has a total score of 62, mainly due to the site assessment portion of it and its proximity to the village of Gilbert's. So based on that, their scoring system has a low protection effort for protection from development based on that scoring. Section 7, there's details of the consultation from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service in your packet. There were additional reviews with the results listed on the screen. They do have a executed agricultural impact mitigation agreement with the Department of Agriculture. City of Elgin had no comment. Village of Gilbert's requested any development consistent with the regional comprehensive planning efforts. And noted that the village has secured boundary agreements. Unlike other petitions, they have not sent in a special letter of objection. We also have received some public comments that are on the zoning petition page. These are the recommended stipulations of approval. He has the ones from Water Resources, also stipulation of having a minimum height of 5 feet and maximum separation distance of 15 feet from center for the plantings as a stipulation, and as well as a stipulation for the 6-inch gap for wildlife, and then the Higgins Road access be increased from 16 feet to 20 feet. These were the special use standards in our ordinance and considered by the ZBA. The ZBA had their public hearing. It did pass with the recommended stipulations. Motion passed 6-1. It's here before you this morning. And we'll note that a representative of the petitioner is here, and I'm not sure if anyone else is here to speak on this matter.
Mr. Linner?
Can you tell us, is there any specific reason why we had one no vote on this? Do you know?
The question is, why did Mr. Stofa vote no at the ZBA hearing?
I do not know his specific reason. I was not at the hearing.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you. With that, I will call Mr. Bill French to the podium. It's our first speaker.
Yes,
Morning,
good.
sir.
Good morning. I'm Bill French with Sunvest Solar. Obviously, we're the petitioner representing the property. We brought a plan before you that we believe meets and exceeds the ordinance requirements that you have. And would like to just point out a few of the things that we did here that are a little bit unique. First of all, before we made our application, I did reach out to Mr. Doherty, whose district this is in, and Mr. Surges, whose district is adjacent to but represents the Village of Gilbert's area. And prior to that, we talked about how we can provide a plan that they would be supportive of. And the thing we're doing here is we're going to preserve that 350 plus feet along the south side of Route 72 for future development. Within the Gilbert's comprehensive plan, it calls it out for commercial or logistics. So that we thought would be a sufficient depth. That was a depth that was agreed upon, and therefore that's why we're preserving that whole stretch there along the south side of Route 72. We're still going to install the landscaping along the north side of our fence. So that actually, when that does develop, that'll be a full, nice, mature stand of evergreens there, creating a natural buffer at that point. All told, that area just that we're showing is about 7.5 acres. If you include the farmstead, which is at northeast corner, and as mentioned, it's vacant. It's been rented out in the past, but it's in pretty rough shape. That would add another 4.5 acres. So you would have about 12 acres of future development there along Route 72. And into the south end, you can see we're buffering along Tyler Creek because there's some floodplain down there. This has been mapped, so we have a very good indication of where this is. And we've done our due diligence. Will be set back away from that. So all told, yeah, we're leasing about 39 acres. We're going to use about 23 of it. The Sun family does own approximately 163 acres, both north and south of Route 72 and the north and south of Tyler Creek. As for your support in this project, again, I believe we've done a good job of our due diligence here, and we're meeting and exceeding your ordinance and really providing some future growth for the Village of Gilbert's along Route 72.
Mr. French, how close is the nearest habitable structure to this property?
Habitable. Doggone, I don't know off the top of my head. It would be off to the east along Tyler Road, Tyrrell Road, excuse me. Probably it'd be that. Oh, can you go back to the one you had there? It's off there to the east. I'm going to say probably 800-900 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for the petitioner? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address this petition? Okay, I would ask Mr. Gripe.
Yes, sir.
Just a question. I don't know who could answer it, but I'm always interested in the way I look at the plan, that it has the viburnum and the arborvitae on the north side. There's nobody living on the south or east or west side currently, but there might be someday. And I'm curious if they build a residential area there, is that when somebody comes to us and says, okay, now we'll add viburnum or whatever we're going to add? That's kind of question one. My question two is specific to the viburnum that's being chosen. It's arrowhead viburnum, great plant, but at its biggest, it gets to be about 10 feet, 6 to 10 feet tall. So you stand a little ways back from those. Arborvitae are much taller, but viburnum don't make a great visual wall for anything. Love the plant, very fragrant, very, very pretty, but I'm just thinking, for the future, we might want to have something a little better than that. Nothing wrong with more than one plant, but so my questions are, what do we do about sides 2, 3, and 4 if somebody else comes in? And secondly, what else could we use in opposition to the viburnum to get a little better?
May I
Mr.
clarify
French?
a point? I'm sorry. Along the north edge, I said there are arrowwood viburnum. It's also arborvitae. So it's a double row of arborvitae with
Right.
viburnum in between. So I apologize if I misspoke there.
No.
Yeah, so we'll be an evergreen. Arborvitae's, where we've talked about them here kind of ad
So, Mr.
nauseum.
Mr.
They grow
Gripe.
pretty good. They'll fill in nicely.
To take your questions in reverse order, I mean, one of the things we have on our agenda is we are reevaluating our landscaping requirements. We're going to have a discussion later in the meeting about that. So a question I would have for the petitioner, would you be willing to add a stipulation to your petition that you will comply with additional landscaping requirements that may be required by the county?
Without knowing what they are?
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. Well, currently, there is existing vegetation along both the east and west side and along the Tyler Creek channel. Would we consider it? I mean, if it was make or break, sure, but I'm agreeing to something I have no
I know I'm
idea.
putting you on the spot. with
Yeah,
that
you
question.
did.
To get to your other question though, Mr. Gripe, if somebody were to develop, say, to the west, okay, we would not require a petitioner to add screening because they were there first. So whoever developed to the west, it would be, if they didn't want to look at the structure, they could screen their own property. I'd ask for a motion to approve and then we can have further discussion. Moved by
Deputy moves.
Iqbal, seconded by
Linder?
Lindner. Okay, any other discussion? I would note that I think this site makes a lot of sense for this use. There's no nearby property owners. It's looks to be screened naturally on the south, the west, and the east. Petitioner is setting the property, or excuse me, the solar farm well back from Higgins Road, addresses the concerns of the village of Gilbert's. I mean, I think they've done a good job with this property. Mr. Linder, do you have a point?
I'm gonna just double what you're saying. I think in the time we've been doing this, this is the most appropriate placement I've seen.
I agree.
Some of them have been in somebody's backyard by 150 feet. That's crazy, but this is pretty appropriate.
Any other discussion? Clerk, please call the roll.
Garcia,
Call the vote.
Garcia,
Garcia, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Williams.
Williams, yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next petition is petition number 4670, petitioner Whiskey Grain Kennels LLC. Mr. Van Kerkhoff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. This is petition 4670 Whiskey Grain Kennels LLC. The applicant representative is Kate McCracken. She is here this morning. Property owner is Whiskey Grain Kennels. Their requested action is a special use in the F farming district for a dog kennel for up to 20 dogs and an F1 rezoning to create a residential parcel for a new home. The owner would be occupying the home and running the kennel. The application was received to by the county in July. Notice was sent to adjacent property owners. It is in the area plan for agriculture and the conceptual land use strategy, as well as the area plan for agriculture in the 2040 land use plan. Here it is on a zoning map. You can see it's an area predominantly planned for agriculture. You can see there is one number of existing rural residential unincorporated subdivisions. Here it is on the zoning map, which reflects that F district farming use predominantly in the area, and the E2A, R1, and E3 zonings in the near vicinity, as well as some F1. Here it is on the aerial. You can see it is predominantly being farmed with the subdivision and some other scattered farmsteads. Here is a close-up. It's currently, the entire property is being farmed. You can see the homes to the north, southwest, and just to the south, close to the road. The special use for the kennel and the F1 are both in the far western portion of the property. Here's a close-up. Here's their site plan. There would be the single-family home in the southwest corner, the kennel just a little bit to the east, but well set off the road, and then a pond and training area for the dogs. Here's the floodplain map, which gives you an idea of why it's located in that southwest corner. Here's a close-up of the plan showing the single-family home and the kennel, along with some screening and parking for the kennel use. Here's a plan of the kennel diagram. for the dog runs in the kennel. Here's some approximate distances to the nearest residences in the subdivision to the southwest, a little over 700 feet. And to the existing house up on Freeland Road, approximately a little over 600 feet from about where the kennel facility is going to be located. In terms of noise concerns, that noise is handled in our property maintenance ordinance. Water Resources had a number of conditions to be recommended to the stipulations to the zoning board. Transportation noted that they would need to get temporary and final access from Virgil Township. Health Department requires well and septic codes to be followed in permits. Forest Preserve didn't have any concerns. Fire Protection District did not have any issues with the proposed zoning. The report concluded that adverse effects are unlikely. This is an area where there is some prime farmland. You can see mostly in the area that's also in the floodplain area. Lisa score value was 53. So it does have a high protection value, mainly due to the soils and its location in our agricultural area. Here's the recommended stipulations again, including the permit from Virgil Township. We had public comment. We did not have any, we had some objectors at the zoning hearing that were area property owners, but not anyone who is adjacent. ZBA recommends to approve with the recommended stipulations.
Any questions of staff before we invite the petitioner to step up? Ms. McCracken, would you like to address the committee? I'm sorry, Mr. Tepe.
How far away from the other residential people are the kennels?
One was like over 600 feet and the other one over 700 feet.
Okay.
I can go back to the map diagram if you'd like.
Well, yapping dogs or barking dogs can be quite annoying.
Hello, my name's Kate McCracken. I represent Whiskey Grain. And I think what I'm going to do is start out right off with addressing your concerns. This is not a kennel in the true sense of the word when we think of kennels. This is a training facility for dogs that do nothing but compete in field training exercises throughout the country. So the owner of Whiskey Grain right now is in Tennessee at what is called the Tennessee International, which is in fact the Super Bowl of field dog training competitions. So it's important. I recognize that the concern relative to barking dogs, and I would love to share with you a video he took recently of the dogs dealing with a coyote in the area. The coyotes were particularly upset and the dogs were still, and there wasn't a bark. It's important to realize with these kind of training facilities, if you have a barky dog, they're not going to stay in this training program. These are highly trained retrievers who he keeps as part of the competition for, in many instances, anywhere up to 9 months and sometimes 12 months. So I just want to give you the context of the kennel because in retrospect, I almost wish he would have named it something other than a kennel because it truly is a training facility. People bring their dogs from all over the country for him to train these dogs. So if I'm a hunter and I want a field trained retriever, this is the place that I'm going to bring them. To address also anything relative to the noise, the kennel is being built with specific insulation and noise reducing insulation, really more so that we can say we have done everything we can to minimize the noise. Truthfully, these dogs, you'll see from the testimony in the record, these dogs literally go to bed at 8 o'clock and no one goes back in until 6 o'clock in the morning or when training operations start first thing in the morning. So it is not, it is a normal timeframe that many of us, as I said during our original hearing, I've never had a dog like that. I wouldn't mind having a dog like that. And these are dogs that are really wonderful to watch. I would encourage you all to go on his website. These are really beautiful dogs who are doing really remarkable things. Again, you will see that 2/3 of the property, probably more than 2/3 of the property, is going to remain farmed. He will continue to farm it for the entirety of his operation. We do need, because there is floodplain, we are intending to have a pond, but the pond is integrated into the training program. So he was happy, where sometimes attention, this was one of those great situations in which he was happy to put in. You will see we're very far set back from the road. We do already have the written approval from the Township Road Commissioner. One of the stipulations also was that we obtain and submit a tile survey, which we're in the process of doing right now. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but it actually is a unique and exciting use that is not inconsistent with the surrounding area.
Any questions of the petitioner? Are there any members of the public wishing to address the committee on this item? I would ask for a motion to approve.
Linda would so move.
Moved by Lender, seconded by Iqbal. Any further discussion? Okay, please call the question.
Garcia,
Garcia, yes.
Iqbal,
Yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Yes.
Williams.
Williams, yes. Before we get to the next item on the agenda, I need to disclose that the petitioners, John and Lindsay Webb, are clients of mine. So on the advice of the state's attorney's office, I'm going to recuse myself from the meeting, and we need to appoint a temporary chairman to fill while I'm in the back. Is there anybody who'd like to serve in that capacity for this next?
Send Mr. Roth up there.
Okay, so a motion, so who made a motion there?
Pepe moves that Mr. Roth
Happy
become
move to appoint
temporary
Bill
chairman.
Roth, the
Second,
temporary
Lindner.
chairman for petition 4672. Is there a second by Lindner? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, Roth.
Great, thank you. I'll begin the presentation while the chairmen are making the switch. Your next petition this morning is petition 4672, John Webb, and Just for Pause. This is in Mr. Williams's district. The applicant and owner is John Webb. Their action is to request a special use in the F farming district for a kennel of up to 40 dogs and 15 cats. The property is located at 1N 409 County Line Road in Caneville Township. Application was received in July, at the end of July, and has been posted on the county's website, as well as the appropriate notices sent to adjacent property owners and units of government. This is located in the area for food, farm, and small towns and the 2040 conceptual land use strategy, which is also in the area plan for agriculture on the 2040 land use plan. This is its location on the 2040 plan, again, area predominantly planned for agriculture. You see some other uses surrounding the village of Maple Park just to the north. Here it is on our zoning map. They have an existing F1 home, which they purchased, and now they're requesting the special use to construct a dog kennel. Here it is close up on the map. Here it is on the aerial. You can see it is really surrounded by farmland and a great distance from any other residents. I will note that Just for Paws is a very successful dog grooming and business in the village of Campton Hills. We have actually been working with them for a number of years, finding a location for them to expand their business to include boarding options. Kennels can sometimes be tricky to locate if there's a proximity homes, and we worked with them on a number of sites, and they found one that meets their needs with great distances from other properties. Here again is another aerial. Here's a close-up that shows the existing F1 home on the property and the location for the proposed special use. It's about a little over half a mile to the closest residence. Here's some photos, very, very pretty out there on County Line. This is a rendering of the facility that they are looking to construct, and a floor plan layout for the kennel operation, and their site plan. Some detail on the walkway and parking that would be provided for their customers. Again, the another version of the site plan, landscaping plan, the planning schedule. Water Resources notes that they will require a stormwater permit as a stipulation. Transportation, they would need to get a permit from KDOT for modifications to the site access, including removal of one existing access on West County Line Road. Health Department noted they would need to submit plans for well and septic. Fire District had no concerns with the application, and they would be reviewing the building plan as part of the building permit process. The EcoCAD had no concerns. This is a prime farmland, received or close to prime farmland, value of 52 for the total leases score. The recommended stipulations from the zoning board included the need to get the access permit and the stormwater permit. We had no public or no correspondence received. ZBA considered the proposal at their public hearing on Tuesday, October 14th, and recommended approval of the special use petition with the recommended stipulations. Well, these were the standards for special uses for your consideration this morning, and the webs are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay. Before we, can I get a motion in a second, please?
So
Deputy moves.
Linda second.
Okay, Tepe and Linder. All right, thank you. Mr. Webb.
Morning. My name is John Webb, owner and operator of Just for Paws in Campton Hills. We're
Can
here
you get
today-
closer to the microphone, please, sir?
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
We're here today to ask for your approval for this process that we've been going through. As Mark already stated earlier, my wife Lindsay and I currently live on the property. We have been searching for many years to try to find a location to expand our business to a second location. This one has met in many of the needs that we've looked for, you know, no neighbors, open land, flat land that we can easily develop. And we're here to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay. Any questions? Anybody? Okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who want to speak on this petition? Does not appear. Okay. There's no more questions or discussion. Let's call the roll, please.
Garcia, yes. Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Roth.
Roth, yes. Okay, motion passes. Mr. Williams back in. Sorry it took so long. Your coffee's good. Yeah, just kidding. You didn't take a sip.
Good job, Mr. Roth.
Okay, record should reflect that I am back to chairing the meeting. The next item on our agenda is property code enforcement. Mr. Mall.
Good morning, John Mall, King County Code Enforcement Officer. I'll move through this quickly because there's a lot more material to cover. Our statistical monthly report is attached in your packet. Last month, we had 24 new cases, which is slightly less than normal, which worked out very well because we were short a staff member for 3 of the 4 weeks, but that person is now back and we're fully staffed. We did have 57 active cases, which is more than usual, closed 28 cases and took 5 cases to adjudication. Additionally, we emailed you a detailed monthly report indicating what's occurring in each of your districts for your review. If there's no other questions, I'll turn it over to Mark Van Kerkhoff, which is going to introduce our proposed short-term rental agreement.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mall. Good morning, Mark Van Kerkhoff again. I want to start out, first of all, just by thanking John for his work on this draft ordinance before you this morning. I want to thank Mr. Gripe for bringing the concerns of his constituents forward on this. It's not unique for us to have issues with some of the larger, particularly some of the larger properties in the county that have been used for short-term rentals. And Mr. Gripe brought a lot of good concerns and items to the table. I also want to thank Mr. Ford and Vince Coyle with our state's attorney's office for the research that they did on this, primarily to identify part of the state statute where doing a short-term rental licensing program could fit that would, we believe, meet some of the goals of being able to have some level of communication and control over short-term rentals. I want to thank them also for their research. We looked at and I'll talk a little bit about the process. We combined, looked at a number of ordinances that have been passed by other counties. We also developed a chart based on those ordinances and some of the issues that Mr. Gripe brought forward to kind of quantify and list those out and then discuss those. I think those were also passed out at the last meeting in case there were any additional issues or topics of concern that could be included in an ordinance. I want to thank the members of the neighborhood there for bringing a couple ones that haven't been on our list that the board could certainly consider and discuss as well. For one of those, particularly with the animals, I would just note that, you know, all other aspects of the county code are applicable to any of these properties, including our animal control ordinance. But we tried to come up with some that were specifically unique and that would be part of a licensing program. So you had before you this morning a ordinance that would adopt it by amending 2 portions of the county code. One would be adding this to our list of things that we could take to our administrative adjudication in terms of violations. The hearing officer has the authority to assess fines and fees, as well as rule on whether violations exist. And then also amending a portion of the county code to establish this as a licensing program that would be administered by the Development Community Services Department. Most of the issues on that chart have been incorporated into Appendix A, which are the actual licensing program requirements in the ordinance. The one area that we're still working on and would appreciate some direction from the committee on is the sort of the authority and enforcement clause of the ordinance. If you'd like to have this administered by the Development Community Services Department and have any enforcement or granting of licenses or suspending of licenses authority delegated to the director of the development department, or how we would like to, you know, see that administrated. So those are details that can be worked out, but primarily wanted to be getting the feedback from the committee on the actual items covered in the licensing requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kerkhoff. So I don't think we are going to undertake a motion to approve this today because it's not in final form. But is there discussion or questions for staff on the ordinance? Mr. Iqbal, I recognize you.
Yeah, first of all, I thank you for not putting it for vote because I would be voting no to this. It's not in the final form. There are concerns that were raised by the resident, and those are good concerns. We should have it on a thorough street and not on a cul-de-sac. Exactly the same thing happened in my district a few years back, where the house was rented as a venue party or venue wedding, something like this. And it was cul-de-sac and it's very small roads, and it was a problem. And I think Mark probably knows how much he has to work on. He had to work on it. And then there are more items here. Number one, as they say, animals need to be considered. They come with us. Short-time tenants as well. Then we have a 30-day max limit. That means they can use it as a hot bed motel for 4 hours. There has to be a limit on the other side, minimum side, has to be 3 days or 5 days. And the number of toilets that if they bring 50 people, where are the toilets in this house? And smoke detectors and carbon monoxide, that requirement is there, but that does not meet the federal requirement that exists right now. So that has to be reviewed. And I will, I think I sent a news clip from Daily Herald about DuPage County passed an ordinance just on this issue. So we should have a look at it and compare what we can gain from their wisdom.
Mr. Lindner?
Yeah, I have a concern that sort of comes out of the public comment. So we're limiting the number of people who can sleep in the house at some number. But if they have a party where people are coming and not intending to sleep in the house, they're just there for a party, there needs to be some limitations both on numbers of people and the time they have to quit at night. We all have a birthday or a graduation or something where we invite everybody in their family and people we work with, whatever. There's a lot of cars, a lot of people that last for 3 hours. I've heard of some of these events that lasted for 36 hours. I mean, even if they're reasonable parties that quit at 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, that you're going to have 12 of those on your block during the year is, besides some neighbors who might have that graduation or birthday or funeral or something. I'm concerned about that.
Ms. Allen?
I'm sorry, I'm not on the committee. This is Alan speaking, but the problem is, I worked in the hotel business for a while, and you have the problem that people on vacation just behave differently than neighbors. The neighbors know that tomorrow they have to face their neighbors, whereas vacationers are just there for a good time and then they leave. And I don't know how we protect a neighborhood, but we need to try and do that.
So I guess I have some questions for Mr. Mall. Are there any, to your knowledge, and if you don't know, we can circle back on this, but is there a limit on the number of animals a property owner can have in a single family home already in the county code?
There is, I believe it's 3.
3 dogs?
Yes.
3 cats, combination thereof?
Yes.
Okay. What about limitations on the number of vehicles that a single family homeowner can have in their I don't think there's any limitations.
We
there,
don't
right?
have a limitation other than that parking needs to be on an improved surface.
Okay. So the reason we're talking about a license is because we don't have the authority to restrict short-term rentals under the law. We have the ability to regulate short-term rentals, but under the county code, we don't have the ability to license them. So that's why putting some restrictions or guidelines, maybe is a better word, in an ordinance will help alleviate some of the problems that we're experiencing with these, but we can't outright prohibit Airbnb or VRBO. So I think maybe it would be helpful if we had Mr. Ford or Mr. Coyle come to the next meeting and we all had, you know, a list of things we want to see changed or added to this ordinance, and then we can have that conversation with our legal counsel, because everyone has ideas on what should be changed, and we need to try to reach a consensus, and we also need to follow the law or not violate the law. So that would be my recommendation. Mr. Shepro,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree with that.
can you use your mic a
Oh,
little
sorry.
closer, Ken? Thanks.
To the extent that there's some ideas in advance of the next meeting, I think it would be helpful to them to be aware of them, particularly the comments by Commissioner Iqbal and the comments from yourself and the audience.
Thank you. And I did not mean to insinuate that you were not capable of answering these questions. But I just thought Mr. Ford or Coyle, since they've been the
No,
driving force here.
I was going
Yeah.
to ask if they were online because then they are not, so.
And I don't think the committee is really ready to
No.
make a recommendation at this time, but Mr. Gripe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great input. And I'd be glad to work with, first of all, I can tell you what the state's attorney's office did, what these guys did is beyond Herculean, looking at every county and planet Earth kind of thing to figure out what will work for us. And we've gotten some great input this morning, like on the pets and things. I'd be glad to work with these folks, even though I'm not on a committee, to encourage feedback and ideas that we can coagulate. That's not the right word. But put together before the next development committee meeting. So we have something a little more tangible for review, if that would be helpful.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Ross.
Mr. Ford is online and also Mr. Caius has his hand raised or he's waving at you. I'm
I
not sure
will
which.
recognize Mr. Caius. Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Thank you. Hands up, yes. I haven't heard anything in this discussion, at least today, I don't believe unless I missed it, about the noise and excessive noise. Is that included in this? I know I've had some, I am currently dealing with some situations up in my area. Doesn't have to do with this particular thing of the short-term rentals, but again, a noise ordinance that is enforceable. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we have a noise ordinance to some extent. It says you can't have loud and raucous noises emanating from your property, but that's really a nebulous standard. And we have talked about over the years, and maybe we should resume that discussion, is instituting a noise ordinance with really decibel standards that are quantifiable, because this has to be enforced by the sheriff. So I think to the extent that a short-term renter is engaging in what is loud and raucous behavior, we would have that covered by existing provisions of our county code, but whether that's enforceable is questionable, I believe. So, Mr. Gripe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Caius, just so you know, there's pieces to this that go together. The one about noise is initially to follow the current county ordinance, but also it was discussed to revisit the county ordinance for updates and changes to include decibels to assist the sheriff's office with enforcement and measure of violations. So that's all part of what's being congealed. That's the word I wanted for the next meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Shepro?
Yes, I was going to say that, as you noted, this was the subject about 10 or 12 years ago of very intense and detailed discussions. And as you point out, one of the problems is our ordinance basically says noise is bad. And it doesn't really define what the noise level was. We had demonstrations in front of the board of the decibel meters. This actually came up in the context of snowmobilers in Campton Township. And of course, there, the problem is that by the time anybody showed up, even if they had the decibel meter, the person was long gone who was making the noise. It might be easier to do that with a party in place, but I would defer to Mr. Ford and his research on that subject. But it was very controversial, and I think we ended up being inundated by the motorcycle community that had problems with the way the ordinance was being proposed, and it ended up staying the way it was.
Yeah. Miss Allen?
Alan, another consideration a while ago was because of large gatherings at the Milk Pail, which is, I think, unincorporated Kane between Elgin and Dundee. And because at that time, the sheriff did not want to make an investment in decibel readers, we wrote up some language that said, if you were on your property line and you could not hold a conversation because of noise coming from some gathering, then that was appropriate to call the sheriff and have the sheriff come and listen and go and ticket that gathering. The reasonableness of being able to hold a conversation on your own party was what we determined was most important.
I think staff is looking for some direction on the enforcement side of things. Mark, you indicated that in your comments, and what I would like to see, I guess, is a fine structure. And the maximum fine, I think we can do is $750 per day of violation or per violation. But I think what you're looking for in addition to that is some sort of guidance on who's responsible for implementing this. Is that correct?
Yeah, for example, as your building officer for the county, I'm the administrative approver and signer for building permits. And if there's a revocation or other need for that, the building officer has the authority for that. So in the case of special event permits, that authority is on Madam Chairman. So this would be a new type of license. There'd be a choice, to write in this if you want it to be the director of development, in this case, or who would have that authority. I think some of our enforcement leverage with this licensing program is going to be the threat of suspension or termination of a license. Because I are working with many of these companies that do the short-term rentals. That's one of their requirements of their locations, is that they are in compliance with local codes and ordinances, and that would give us leverage to be able to contact them and say their license has been suspended, their license has been revoked.
Okay.
But somebody needs to have the authority to make those determinations and take those actions, including reinstating. So those are some of the details to work out.
Well, Mr. Mall is going to be the one enforcing this, so I would think it would make sense that your department handles the licensing of it. Is there any disagreement with that, Mr. Mall?
No, I agree with that. I feel like the presentation was more that we want this ordinance to promote Airbnbs and parties for the community. It's the exact opposite. It's to give regulation for the ability that they have right now to have an Airbnb at their home. They can have an Airbnb right now. There's no regulations except county codes and ordinances. And for a follow-up through code enforcement, it's very difficult to follow up with some of these people and get their attention because we only have that address. And we send a letter and a second letter and adjudication paperwork to that address, and I don't know that they ever get it. So if they're licensed, we could have a phone number and an email and a contact information, alternate address to get a hold of these people and let them know that there is a problem at their property. So it's really to regulate it. That's why we want to have this ordinance, is for regulation more than promoting the use of the property for an Airbnb or a party.
Mr. Shepro?
So I don't want to extend the discussion, but it seems to me that the initial response to the noise issue is going to be the sheriff, not the building department. I mean, unless they plan to, because it sounds like the biggest problem is noise and weekends, evenings, and into the night.
One of the conversations we had with the sheriff when we were talking about the noise ordinance was, we have to buy the decibel meters. And then we have to have those deputies trained on how to use them and how to calibrate them. And, that opens up a can of worms, cost and man hours. And
my understanding, and this is quite old, is that generally they would show up and say, can you tone it down? And hopefully they would. And if not, then they might come back and do something. This was without the benefit of a decibel meter.
Right.
So I think that if the state's attorney's office agrees, it seemed to me the sheriff's office is going to need to be involved. And of course, we also know that the coverage at 3 o'clock in the morning in the unincorporated areas is not unlimited.
right. Mr. Van Kerkhoff?
Yeah, if I could add to that. So, the current county ordinances are placed for every property regardless. So in this case, if there was repetitive complaints against an address because of noise and the sheriff's call and what they observed and whatever, that's where, I think the intent would be that whoever's authority over this licensing program would have the ability to suspend or revoke a license based on the types and numbers of complaints that the sheriff has had to respond to. So, that's where it gives us ability to do something more proactive to get their attention if it's a repetitive issue. The other thing, I'll thank Mr. Ford for being online if he has any input, but generally everything that's in this draft ordinance has been, I understand, pretty much vetted and is okay with the state's attorney's office. So if there's additional items that committee members want to recommend be considered to be added, if you could get those to Mr. Williams and Mr. Mall and Mr. Gripe and I, will share that with Mr. Ford, and they can give us some input, review it and give us input prior to the next month's meeting, whether, these are things that they feel, are appropriate to be included and could be defensible.
Right. So I think it would be helpful if the members of the committee and other board members who have an interest in this, who are listening online or in the room, within the next 2 weeks could get emails to me and Mark and John, and we'll compile those comments, get them over to Mr. Ford and Mr. Shepro, and then have another turn of the document at our next committee meeting. Okay, let's move on. Planning and special projects.
Chris Toth speaking. In your packet, you'll find the monthly report for the King County Planning and Special Projects Division monthly report. I'd be glad to answer any of these questions or any questions pertaining to this document. We typically report most of these activities out to the other committees, E&E, Jobs, and Agriculture. But if you have any questions on anything you see, I'd be glad to answer those right now.
Any questions for Chris?
Barring none, I'd like to hand it over to Mark to talk about some of the new items on the report.
Great, thank you. In this section of the report for community and housing development activities, we're probably going to put under a separate new section on your agenda, because you're going to start seeing more resolutions and agreements and things coming through, primarily handled by Mr. Dahl with his activities. But for this month's report, I did want to give you an update on our Emergency Rental Assistance Program 2, which is our $15 million grant that we got in 2022 that's sunsetting now. So all of the program activities ended on September 30th. That included obligating funds for our various programs, subrecipients, our own rental assistance program that we were running internally. 5 capital projects for affordable rental housing, one which you approved and gratefully is going to help a project in Aurora through our partnership with the Illinois Housing Development Authority. We worked very hard. I want to give a shout out to Matt Tansley, especially working with our 4 housing stability counseling subrecipient agencies to extend and increase their funding in order to use our funds and help pay for some of the services that they've been providing that were not originally captured in their agreements. We had over 200 new applications for our own program that we are running. We are now in the process of getting those approvals through our internal vendoring approval system and getting checks sent out to landlords. And then generally what we're in right now is called the grant liquidation period and reporting period that started October 1st and ends at the end of January. Happy to answer any questions regarding that before I turn it over to Mr. Dahl for the rest of the updates.
Any questions for Mr. Van Kerkhoff? Okay, Mr. Dahl.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris Dahl. I just wanted to go through the 2 grant programs that have been returned to Development and Community Services, formerly with the Office of Community Reinvestment. That's the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG, and the Home Program, which is run through the Kane-Elgin Consortium for Housing Development. You have the notes there, but I'll kind of run through them with some additions. Applications for the 2025 CDBG were received and reviewed by the Community Development Commission. That was earlier in 2025. The 5-year consolidated plan for Kane County and the city of Elgin was submitted to HUD in August and has been approved by HUD. A shout out to Nazreen Wakila, who is with the health department, but helped us do the heavy lifting for that plan. The program year 2025 funding agreement has been sent to us by HUD and signed by Madam Chair and returned to HUD. That also has been done with the home program. That agreement has been signed by Madam Chair and returned to HUD. The initial word was that this would be processed yesterday. We're hoping to hear some confirmation of that. I don't know with the shutdown if that will delay that. With CDBG, the city of Elgin is reassuming administration of their CDBG program. We had, through the Office of Community Reinvestment, administered that program for a number of years due to capacity issues for the city of Elgin. They are taking that back on. There was a 90-day transition period that began on July 16th, and that has just ended. All Elgin CDBG management will now pass on to Elgin. For the home program, staff initiated the 3-year renewal process with HUD. As I mentioned, the funding agreement has been signed and returned to HUD. The call for applications for 2025 was released in mid-September. The deadline just passed. We will currently be vetting those applications through staff. And then also a request for proposal for a home program consultant is in progress. The last I heard from purchasing that they had confirmed that currently over 30 providers have registered and downloaded the packet. That was as of last week, so that may have increased. The deadline is tomorrow on the 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our subdivision report. Ms. Orlick.
Good morning. You had your presentation earlier in the land cash meeting prior to this development committee meeting. Were there any additional comments?
I think it'd be appropriate for somebody to make a motion to approve the relief
Linda will move to
requested.
approve.
Moved by Lindner, seconded by
Leonard will second.
Leonard. Discussion. I mean, I typically wouldn't be in favor of this type of thing, but given that this lot is paid a fair amount of real estate tax over the years, I'm really not quite sure why so much. They probably could have done something about that years ago and saved themselves a lot of money, but in this circumstance, I support it. Mr. Tepe?
What's the total amount of the decrease in taxes that would be for this parcel?
So it wouldn't be a decrease in taxes. It would be the land cash fee. When they apply for a building permit, they pay a fee. I think it's based on number of bedrooms.
Correct.
To the school district and to the
And
park
parks.
district.
Correct.
And the reason for that is if you have a lot and you're going to build a house, there's a gap, like 18 months or so before the increase in the assessment is on the tax rolls and the taxing bodies are actually receiving monies from the taxes from that property. So the intent of the ordinance is to cover that gap so that they can provide those services. In this case, this property has paid over 290,000 in real estate taxes for over 20 years. The argument is there is no impact on the taxing bodies because we've already paid so much in taxes. So you know, this property, I think was paying 14,000 a year in taxes.
Correct.
And some of the comparable properties were paying like $500 a year. So there's such a discrepancy in the amount that this property has paid as it relates to normal vacant lots in the county, that it's inequitable for us to further impose land cash fees on this property because it has paid more than its fair share with no impact on services.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Garcia.
Garcia, yes.
Linder,
Linda, yes.
Tepe,
Zepi, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Williams.
Williams, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
yeah, this is, as I understand it, relief for one property owner.
Correct. Just this one property.
I think we should put on the record the name of the property owner.
Or you know what, maybe someone could amend their motion, this
Motion.
friendly amendment to reflect the parcel number,
Yeah,
which is, I don't have that handy.
It's 0917451002.
Who made the motion? Linner, were you?
Fine.
was Mr.
Leonard?
Lindner
And who seconded?
by Mr. Leonard.
Leonard, okay, you agree with that amendment? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Environmental Resources, Ms. Walnick.
We don't have anything this month.
Thank you much. Moving on to new business, commercial solar energy facilities, landscape screening discussion. Mr. Van Kirkhoff.
Good morning, Mark Van Kirkhoff again. As I mentioned before, Natalie Zine, who prepared this presentation for last month and was on your agenda, is on vacation this week, much needed. So I am covering this for her. I do want to thank her for her very thorough investigation, including, as you see in the towards the end of the packet, a field trip down to Will County to tour some sites and kind of get their experience. But you've had this for a month now to review. I'd be happy to go through some of the highlights, you know, for your discussion as well this morning. So again, Natalie's good work here on just kind of putting some parameters around this discussion. There's been a lot of questions and public comment, particularly with some of the facilities now that they're, you know, either under construction or recently completed construction. This presentation talks about some of the introductory information and landscape screening requirements in response to your interest, the board's interest. So first of all, we are enabled to provide certain vegetative screening surrounding a commercial wind energy or commercial solar facility, but we cannot require berms or similar structures. Our own ordinance that we revised in several years ago in response to the state statute, said that a vegetative screen shall be provided for any part of the commercial solar energy facility that is visible to non-participating residents, and be located between the required fencing and the property line. And shall include a continuous line of native evergreen foliage and native shrubs. So one of our recent stipulations, in fact, it was on one of your stipulations this morning, was based on some of the comments, over some of the last meetings, but asking for a continuous line of evergreen trees with minimum planting height of 5 feet and maximum separation distance of 15 feet on center, as a way to provide some definition to what a continuous line means. Some of the additional counties, these are in your packet, but sort of in summary, a lot of them are similar themes, but likewise, not clearly defined with a minimum height or spacing requirements. These are just kind of summary of the various counties that we've taken a look at. So what can we regulate? Generally speaking, what circumstances screening is required, where screening should be located on the property, what types, species of landscape screening shall be used, minimum height of screening at time of planting, minimum distance. We could potentially also add in when it's planted, what phase of construction, what are some of the maintenance expectations on this. One of the reasons it was maybe somewhat ambiguous at the get-go was, and you see in your packet at the end, some of the example projects that have already been approved by the county board, is that the wide variety of conditions that exist, including whether there's neighbors or not neighbors, whether there's an elevation change or not an elevation change. There's a lot of unique factors for almost every site. And in some of the cases, especially with some of the ones that are in your packet, additional landscaping was negotiated and added to the petition as a result of public comments or input from adjacent property owners to provide additional screening based on their input. So in some ways, the process has allowed for that flexibility, and it's a question of whether there needs to be more definition. So the some of the things that are we currently have in there that Natalie highlighted, we're basically saying visible to non-participating residents and a continuous line are probably the two most vague portions that Natalie's been wrestling with the applications. One, what does visible mean? Is it at any distance? Is there a specific distance? Is it for properties that are adjacent? What if they're in a municipality? And then some of the questions on, what is a continuous line, which, this recent amendment kind of got at what, should the height and distance be. And then some of the other anticipated questions, planting schedule timing, in terms of time of year and stage of construction. Some of the concerns we've received recently, some of our board members have been for facilities that, most of the installation and fencing is in place, but they haven't put any of the landscaping in place yet, and a concern whether that's going to be done or not. Landscape plans and inspections. It does add the more complex the plan and follow-up and maintenance scheduling, just a heads up that's an impact on staff to actually do those. And then, should there be some maintenance and fines as a function of code enforcement? She posed that as a question, but my input would be that currently we have the ability to take somebody to adjudication if they're not in compliance with the conditions of their zoning approval. So there's some administrative options. We could add stipulations for approval, which is what we've been doing now. We could have myself add some, a zoning officer interpretation of what that continuous line means. Or we could do a text amendment. Those are sort of three options for achieving some consistency with some requirements. So next steps for staff, how would you like staff to proceed? Are there any additional questions at this time? I did also in your packet are the plans of sites under permit, as well as some of the examples from Will County, which I think illustrates some of the issues of landscape, evergreens, spacing, what they actually look like on the site. Are they still alive after, so many weeks or years, those kind of things. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Linder?
Well, you mentioned arborvitae planted at 15 feet on center. In my neighborhood, there's some arborvitae that have grown over maybe 25 years to be 15 feet or more tall. They're still only yay wide. Those on 15-foot centers leave more visibility than they block. I'm thinking they need to be something closer to like 6 foot on center. But it's going to depend on what you plant. You can plant some other plants that maybe spread further, but if you're talking arborvitae 15 feet, that doesn't screen anything.
Mr. Roth?
I think it depends on what type of plant. As my esteemed expert on my left, certain ones, when they get too close, they kill each other off. So I think you need to say this type of plant, because the question comes up too, is it a native plant? And so it may require a lot more homework and maybe staggered, like the last solar, they staggered it, which I think was a good idea. But then you also have to have how far away are they staggered to? So it's not an easy answer, but we have to decide. And I didn't see mention, but it's what they're supposed to plant underneath the panels, because we're finding out that some developers say, well, nothing will grow. Well, I think that should be part of the requirement, that they fix the soil so something will grow. Otherwise, we get the 12-foot weeds growing like we have in some of the spots. I won't say where.
Well, account, we need to look, clean up our own house too before we.
Well, I didn't say where.
So I got a question for
right there.
Mark, and maybe Ken, you could chime in on this, but if the land, like this example we have here where we have dead arborvitae, and those are a condition of approval, and they don't replace the dead landscaping, are they at risk of having their special use revoked? Is that a hammer we have?
Or is that only at Halloween time?
I think you'd have Shepro. I mean, as a practical matter, if you were to revoke the special use, I think you're going to be in litigation.
Can you use your microphone, Ken?
I'm sorry. I think I don't think it seems very practical to say that you could revoke the special use. For example, I mean, among other things, you'd have to have another hearing and a process to revoke it. You can't just cancel it.
So what a better.
I think a better would be, to me, a combination of the ordinance and enforcement that would allow fines or something to be levied if the.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and currently we could take someone to adjudication if they're in violation of the stipulations and conditions of their zoning. It becomes more an issue as county board wants staff to be doing regular inspections to be noting the number of dead trees, or we go on a complaint, issue of neighbors call and we follow up, and there's, and then the time of year in terms of replacement. But here's just, again, some examples from Will County, some variety of things. I will note that, the intent or intensity of screening, seems to be somewhat at the eye of the beholder. Also, we had some early petitions where objectors actually did not want any evergreen screening because they felt that it blocked was not consistent with the view, even with the panels there of evergreen trees sort of, you know, in the middle of the farm landscape. And in other cases, you know, people wanted a more of a solid wall. In some cases, the intent of landscaping, you know, in general is to take your eye away from what is behind it, not necessarily screen it 100%. But is it enough to be distracting from the view that's behind it? So there's a number of ways to approach it.
Mr. Gripe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be glad to, I mean, what we see in front of us right now is what you, can you go back? Thank you, Blair. Is what you get when somebody who's really good at building solar fields and not so good at landscaping, you know, does this, you know, none of us would want this in front of our house. But we have a resource, and I'd be glad to talk to, you know, Ben Haberther at the Forest Preserve to say, would you work with the development department to come up with criteria for what works, and who knows better than what grows good around here than those guys? And then how should it be cared for? How should we specify watering? You know, just because I put the plants in and I don't wave goodbye, because if they aren't watered appropriately for the right amount of time, they're dead. So I'd be glad to talk to, again, I'm not on the committee, but be glad to talk to Ben about how he could work in concert with our friends here in development to get the right solution put through.
Well, if it's acceptable to the committee, what I would propose is that we set up a meeting with you, Mr. Van Kerkhoff, or Natalie, myself, and Ben. And then we come to this committee with some proposals. For instance, you know, I have some thoughts. You know, one of the questions was what is an adjacent nearby property, or whatever that term was. And, you know, if you're a quarter mile away, are you, you know, I guess that you can see there's a direct line of sight. I guess maybe, you know, we would require screening, but if you're a mile away, I don't know if we necessarily need to screen that. I think that we should also in that definition include screening adjacent to county property and forest preserve property. Because if I'm out in a forest preserve and I'm at the edge of the forest preserve, you know, I'm enjoying the forest preserve. I don't want to necessarily have to see a solar facility. I think there should be some screening if it's next to a forest preserve. That's my thought on that. I think we should have a credit where if they, for instance, we can't require berming, but if the developer installs a berm, then maybe we give them some relief in landscaping. Because I don't know if a solar developer would want a berm or undulating berm, but something to break up the view would be nice. And I think to Mr. Linder's point, if you're using all arborvitae, then maybe it's not 15 feet, maybe it's 6 feet. But if you're doing white pines, which, you know, I have bordering both sides of my property and are, you know, 35, 40 feet now, and are lovely trees, you know, maybe that's 15 feet. So I think we need to come up with species. We need to have distances. We need to have standards for distances. We need to encourage berming, can't require it. And then I think we need to just roll this out and see how it's received by the board. So let's set up a meeting, John. Any other discussion on this? Sam?
And Alan, could you add to your very good list, a competent material for the area under the planters or around the panels?
So soil prep and suitability.
We've seen some really marvelous pictures of wildflowers and stuff growing around these solar things, but I don't know that we've seen any locally.
Will do. Okay. I ask for a motion to place the reports on file.
Linder will ask unanimous consent to
Any
replace the
objection?
reports on file.
Seeing none, the reports are placed on file. There's no need for executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Linder moves adjournment.
By Lindner, second by
Sonia
Garcia.
Garcia.
All in favor?
Aye.